Welcome to The Breakdown with Dr. Earl, a mental health podcast. This is Dr. Earl Turner, a licensed psychologist and psychology professor in Los Angeles. Just a few disclaimers. The Breakdown podcast is not intended to replace working with a licensed mental health professional. Welcome to The Breakdown. This is Dr. Earl. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of The Breakdown with Dr. Earl. Today's episode is titled New Year, New Goals, and for me, that means taking the podcast in a new direction. So I am excited to add some audio as well as video clips on YouTube for you guys. So be sure to subscribe, share the podcast on YouTube at Dr. Earl Turner. I'll also include that information in the show notes. Before we jump into the show today, I want to say Happy Black History Month. So it is February. The podcast has made its first year since I started the podcast. And so I'm really excited that you have provided some support to the show. You have tuned in, you have commented, you have shared some of our information on Instagram. So if you are new to the show, be sure to follow the podcast at The Breakdown with Dr. Earl on Instagram. You can also subscribe to the show on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. So I do appreciate all of my guests that stopped by the podcast last season so that we can share some information and provide some resources to you guys. So just to go back a little bit and tell you about myself, for those of you that are new to the show, I'm Dr. Earl Turner. I am a licensed psychologist as well as a psychology professor. I'm currently teaching in Los Angeles, California. But I just wanted to share just a little bit of information about myself so that way, for those of you that are new to the show, you can understand sort of what perspective I'm bringing in terms of the podcast and some of the things that I will be talking about on the show. So the podcast is primarily geared towards talking about issues related to Black boys and men. And I specifically wanted to focus on this topic because we know that one, in the Black community, there is a lot of stigma around mental health services. And when we look at men and their use of treatment, it is significantly less than other groups. And specifically Black men, really understanding what are the dynamics of going to therapy, talking about your feelings and emotions. I think that in the last couple of years, these conversations have been more frequent. And as you have seen on the podcast, if you have listened over the last year, these conversations have been more frequent when it comes to celebrities talking about mental health, as well as rap artists and musicians talking about their own mental health challenges, and even individuals like Chance the Rapper starting a foundation that's geared towards addressing mental health. So I think that these are great things happening and also really important to help change the conversation, shape the narrative around mental health in the Black communities.